The Laṅkāvatāra Sūtra, Part 82. Mahāmati once more asked the Buddha, "Bhagavan, would you please explain again the arising and cessation of the skandhas, dhatus, and ayatanas? If they contain no self, who arises and who ceases? Foolish people rely on arising and cessation, and fail to experience an end of suffering, and fail to know nirvana." The Buddha said, "Excellent. Listen carefully, and I will tell you." Mahāmati replied, "May we be so instructed." The Buddha said, "The Tathagata Garbha is the cause of whatever is good or bad, and is responsible for every form of existence everywhere. It is like an actor who changes appearances in different settings, but who lacks a self, or what belongs to a self. Because this is not understood, followers of other paths unwittingly imagine an agent responsible for the effects that arise from the threefold combination. When it is impregnated by the habit energy of beginningless fabrications, it is known as the repository consciousness, and gives birth to fundamental ignorance, along with 7 kinds of consciousness. It is like the ocean, whose waves rise without cease. But it transcends the misconception of impermanence, or the conceit of a self, and is essentially pure and clear. The 7 kinds of thoughts of the remaining forms of consciousness, the will, conceptual consciousness, and the others, rise and cease as the result of mistakenly projecting and grasping external appearances. Because people are attached to the names and appearances of all kinds of shapes, they are unaware that such forms and characteristics are the perceptions of their own minds, and that bliss or suffering do not lead to liberation. As they become enveloped by names and appearances, their desires arise and create more desires, each becoming the cause or condition of the next. Only if their senses stopped functioning, and the remaining projections of their minds no longer arose, and they did not distinguish bliss or suffering, would they enter the samadhi of cessation of sensation and perception in the 4th jhana heaven. However, in their cultivation of the truths of liberation, they give rise to the concept of liberation, and fail to transcend or transform what is called the repository consciousness of the Tathagata Garbha. And the 7 kinds of consciousness never stop flowing. And how so? Because the different kinds of consciousness arise as a result of causes and conditions. This is not the understanding of Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha practitioners, as they do not realize there is no self that arises from grasping the individual or shared characteristics of the skandhas, dhatus, or ayatanas. For those who see the Tathagata Garbha, the 5 dharmas, the modes of existence, and the 2 kinds of no self cease to exist. And once they progress through the sequence of stages, and are not swayed by the views of other paths, they are said to dwell in the unshakable stage of bodhisattvas, where they enjoy the bliss of the 10 samadhis. Supported by the Buddhas during such samadhis, they reflect on the inconceivable Dharma. But because of their vows, they do not grasp the bliss of samadhi or ultimate reality. And by means of the personal realization of Buddha knowledge, which is not among the practices of Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, or followers of other paths, they complete the 10-stage path of the lineage of sages, and they acquire bodies of knowledge and projection that transcend samadhi. Therefore, Mahāmati, bodhisattvas who seek the highest goal should purify what are called the Tathagata Garbha and the repository consciousness. Mahāmati, if there were nothing called the repository consciousness, the Tathagata Garbha would neither arise nor cease. But sages and fools alike experience arising and cessation, Mahāmati. Therefore, practitioners who cultivate the personal realization of Buddha knowledge dwell in the bliss of whatever is present and do not abandon their practice. Mahāmati, although this repository consciousness of the Tathagata Garbha, seen by the minds of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, is essentially pure, because it is obscured by the dust of sensation, it appears impure, but not to Tathagatas. To Tathagatas, Mahāmati, the realm that appears before them is like an amala fruit in the palm of their hand. Mahāmati, I have used my spiritual power to support Queen Srimala and other bodhisattvas of deep wisdom to explain the meaning of what are called the repository consciousness and the Tathagata Garbha, which appear together with the 7 other kinds of consciousness, so that those Shravakas still attached to them might see that persons and dharmas are without a self. Thus, supported by the power of the Buddha, Queen Srimala explained the realm of understanding of Tathagatas and not the realm of understanding of Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, or other paths. The repository consciousness of the Tathagata Garbha is something only Buddhas and those wisest of bodhisattvas who rely on meaning understand. Therefore, you and the other bodhisattvas should diligently reflect on the repository consciousness of the Tathagata Garbha. Don't simply think hearing about this is enough. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Deep is the Tathagata Garbha, with 7 kinds of consciousness. The 2 kinds of grasping that arise are avoided by the wise. The mind is like a reflected image, the result of habit energy without beginning. For those who see what is real, whatever is seen isn't seen. Like fools who see me point to the moon, look at my finger and not at the moon, those who cling to names don't see this truth of mine. The mind is the hero in a play. The will is the hero's confidant. The 5 forms of consciousness are the cast. Projections are the audience.